Hello everybody, thanks for joining me today. I'm Jackie and I create mosaics using sea glass. And today I'm going to show you my sea glass mosaic family of fish. So I'm here at the cottage and it's the first of the summer season. And what I usually do when I get here at the first of the season is I'll start a mosaic, sometimes more than one, and then I'll work on them whenever I get an opportunity over the course of the summer. And so it can take me a while to get a project done because when I'm here, I tend to be at the beach quite a bit or socializing because we have quite a bit of family around here and I love to socialize with my family. And the other thing is I have to go home quite a bit, so I'm kind of back and forth. So it can take me a while, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this project today, and then I'll show you my progress over the course of the summer. So it might be a little while into the summer, or towards the end of the summer, before I actually post the video. But eventually I'll get it done. So what I'm going to do is I have this frame. It's an old antique window, and it's got 4 panes in it. And I cleaned up this frame and I decided once I cleaned it up, I'm not going to paint it. I'm going to leave it the way it is. It's rustic and rough and I really like the look of it. And I'm thinking that I kind of pictured that a really neat underwater scene would look nice. So what I've done is I've cut four pieces of paper to fit in each pane, and I've drawn a family of fish. So there's only 5 fish in this, but once I do my 5 fish, I might add a few other small fish. We'll see. So the first thing I did with this one, I went to start doing it and I realized that my pattern was taped on upside down. So tip number 1 on this piece has to be, make sure your pattern is taped on right. And in this case, I had to retape it. So then what I'm going to do is I have a tray of brown sea glass here, and it's mostly small to medium brown, and I'm going to use those to fill in the silhouettes of all these fish. So I would just dump a bunch of small browns onto my glass, and then I've got a bunch to pick from in fitting in the fish. When I'm doing a silhouette like this, what I would typically do is start at the top and work my way down, because I find the tips of the fish are probably the best place to start. And in the tips here, when you find some pieces that kind of fit in nicely with the tips, you can fit them in. I've done a fish piece in one of my previous videos, so you may have seen that one. So this making of the fish bit might be a bit repetitive for you, and if you find it's repetitive, just skip through it. But if you are interested in seeing how I create these fish, you can continue to watch this section of this video. So once I have the outline pieces of the fish planned out, I'm going to glue them on. So I have my glue, my kitchen and bath adhesive caulking, silicone, and I've got a paper towel, a rag, and I've got a couple of skewers here, a barbecue skewer and a toothpick to clean away any excess. So that's all I need for materials. So I'm going to glue along the outside of this fish here, put a little bit of silicone on each piece and glue it down before I start filling in the fish. These barbecue skewers are great for poking at the pieces once you've got them glued on too, just to make sure they're lined up just perfectly, because the silicone takes a while to set and then you can fuss around with the pieces for a bit. And there we go, I have the outline of the top part of that fish done. Now what's different from these fish from the last one that I did is that I have these breaks in the panes of glass. So when you start on to the next pane of glass, you want to make sure that the pattern might not line up perfectly. So make sure that your pieces of glass line up so that it looks like the fish is just behind the pane of glass. Now you might be watching me do this and you might be thinking, oh, I'm going fairly quickly, but I would caution you to take your time. I've been making sea glass mosaics for a really long time, and what happens, it's like anything, the longer you do it, the more practice you have, the easier it gets. And I find because I've been doing mosaics for a long time, I am developing a bit of a knack for looking at my sea glass and being able to pick out the piece that's going to fit just right. So when you're first starting out doing this, you might need some practice in getting the pieces lined up so they fit together nicely. So take your time. After all, the longer it takes you to do, the more hours of relaxation you get. I always say one of the best things about sea glass mosaics is the hours and hours of relaxation that comes with doing it. And if you're searching through your sea glass and you can't find just the right shape, I just grab another handful of it. So once I get the outline of the fish done up here, I don't want to fill in the middle until I've let it set a bit, because I don't want to mess up the outline. I'm happy with the way that fish looks now. But down here in the fin part, I find it easiest to do the outside of the fin, like the two outside lines, and then fill it in. And as you can see, I'm finding a piece that fits and then gluing it right away, as opposed to the outline where I kind of got the outline there and then went back and glued it all. These wooden skewers are great for cleaning glue off your glass too. You can use the pokey part for poking at things, and the bottom part is flatter, and it's good for cleaning up a bit. So I've let this set for a bit, and so now these pieces around the outline of the fish aren't going to move on me. So now I can just go about filling in the inside of the fish. And I'm basically just putting the pieces together like a puzzle. I'm seeing a blank space and then trying to find pieces of sea glass that fit. I've got quite a few to pick from here. And if I can't find what I'm looking for, I'll just dump some more onto the glass here. And I'll just fill it in. This is a fairly straightforward process. I can be slow by times, but that's okay. So these fish aren't really a particular shape or anything, or a particular fish. I just really kind of like the shape of fish. And for me, because it's a silhouette, it's just like the shadow of the fish swimming through the water. So I don't know if it shows up very well on the video, but I'm making an effort here to use all different shades of brown, because if I just used all the same shade of brown, I think my fish would look fairly flat. So there you go. I have the first fish finished. That's quite a tongue twister there, first fish finished. And I'm just going to go ahead and fill in the other 4 fish in much the same approach. So I finished my 5 fish, and I'm just going to give you a close-up on each fish in case you want to see how I assembled the pieces to make the silhouette of each fish. Each fish, no matter what you do, is going to be unique and individual, because as things go with sea glass, each piece is unique and individual. So there's an infinite array of ways you can put pieces together to create a silhouette. So there you have my 5 fish. Now to create the underwater scene that they're swimming in. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm working on a mosaic at the cottage is to collect pieces at the beach that I'm going to use in the mosaic I'm currently working on. So yesterday when I was at the beach, I found quite a few things I want to use, like this piece of driftwood. I don't know if you can tell, but it's all stained with red mud, and I kind of like that, and it fits perfect right there. So I'm going to put that there, and then I want to put the inukshuk standing on the piece of driftwood, even though you know driftwood wouldn't be at the bottom of the ocean. But this is a fanciful piece after all. And I collected a bunch of black stones to make my inukshuk. And I decided to gather some rocks to put at the bottom, just to kind of ground the bottom of the piece. I love these sparkly rocks that we get here, rocks and pebbles. Thought I'd get a few of those ones that are really unique. The other thing that I have going on in this piece is I have a crack right here, and I've reinforced the back of the crack with a little bead of silicone. But the front of the crack, I want to make sure that I cover it fairly well with rocks and sea glass. So I'm going to put some rocks along there. And I found a few pieces of this petrified wood, some small pieces, so I'm going to put those in. It's kind of nice having some big chunky things. Sometimes I don't even attach them to the glass. I attach them to the bottom of the window frame. This is kind of a unique one. It might stand up really nicely at the bottom of the window frame. The other thing I found was this white, big, chunky piece of sea glass that I thought kind of looked like a jellyfish. So I thought I might put that in there and create a bit of a jellyfish. And I might look through some of my whites to see if I have a couple of other that are kind of roundish and similar like that. And I found this little clamshell that was still hinged. It's really tiny. So I thought I might reinforce the hinge with some silicone and put it down here at the bottom and maybe put a treasure inside, like this tiny little blue piece that I found. Maybe I'll glue that so it's sticking out of the clamshell. So I'll set that there for now till I decide. And I found some cool tiny little shells. And the other thing I like to do in an underwater scene is have waves of stuff coming up. So I have these shells that are not so interesting on the outside. They are kind of pretty, but the inside of them has got all this purple stuff. So that one's broken. I don't want to use that one. I thought I might put a bunch of these in, make a few lines of these coming up to kind of simulate kelp or seaweed growing up from the bottom of the ocean. And the other thing I really like are these. I've collected a whole bunch of these yesterday and the day before. And they're the shells that are kind of turn out like circles. And I find those are really cool in an underwater scene because they're kind of like bubbles coming up from the bottom. So I'm also going to put green stripes, flowing lines coming up of green pieces of sea glass that are going to be like kelp and seaweed growing up from the bottom of the ocean. So here I am, it's the end of the summer and I don't have my family of fish finished, probably because we had too much good weather this summer and I spent a lot of time down at the beach sea glass hunting and didn't have enough rainy days to sit and work on my sea glass art. So I'm taking it home and I'll finish it at home. And I hope you found this video really interesting, seeing how I was putting this piece together. And I will follow it up with a second video showing you the completion of the project after I get it done when I get home. So thanks very much for joining me, and until next time, happy sea glass hunting.